Welcome back to the Solid Verbal boys and girls. My name is Ty Hildenbrand, that fine gentleman over there, the one, the only, still the incomparable. You know him. His name is Dan Rubenstein. Sir, welcome back to the pod. What's up?
Ty, I want you to strip down your perspective. I want you to strip down your outsider perspective, and I want you to put on the quarter zip, the team-issued Under Armours, Nikes, Adidas. I want you to sit behind a desk, perhaps with some pendulous balls. You know what I'm talking about? Those metal, they go back and forth, the pendulum balls.
I've never heard them referred to as pendulous balls, but I am familiar with, yes.
I want you to assume a more corporate mindset because I am putting you in the seat. I'm putting myself in the seat as well of an athletic director at a pretty good program. I don't know by definition what the most pretty good program is, Ty, but we're here to rank coaches. And if you're an athletic director, what would be a good athletic director name? Like a good make-believe. I got one. You ready?
Go ahead.
You are now Skip Thatcher.
Skip Thatcher, that's a perfect
Isn't that pretty good?
That's very good.
He is eventually going to become the ACC commissioner, possibly driving the conference into the ground in the early 2030s.
Right.
But we, on our last episode, came up with our like top 10 to 15-ish by like a very specific, subjective method of coming up with coaches. And we have a lot more coaches to discuss and rank. And I want to simplify because I had to do a lot of math on the fly last week.
Yeah, this is mostly to serve us and to conceal the depths of our math abilities.
Yeah. I would, the good people at like the SAT 2s or the ACT would laugh me out of, a proctor would be like, I don't think this is the room for you, sir. So I want you to really, I want you to wear that skin, Ty. I want you to Silence of the Lambs this scenario for yourself. And I don't know where I'm going with this, but I want you to think about if you are an athletic director and we have a list of 12, 13 coaches that did make our top 14 or 15 last week.
Yeah.
And this is where it becomes more difficult. Like hiring Kirby Smart's a no-brainer. Hiring Kyle Whittingham's a no-brainer. Perhaps to some, hiring Dabo Sweeney's a no-brainer. These are more difficult calls, and I want you to really dig in when discussing and ranking which coach over another coach or whatever you would want to hire for like the next 3 years of your tenure.
Next 3 years.
Hey, sorry for the quick interruption, but it'd be incredible if you considered subscribing to the Solid Verbal YouTube channel right down below.
So here is the setup, right?
Yeah.
For people who are just tuning in and aren't familiar with what this whole episode is about. Strip down, thank you. Yeah. And the pendulous balls. Last episode, we trotted something out that we called the X-Dabo scale. Yeah. And that was in response to an article that ESPN and its family of reporters put out on ESPN.com, in which they ranked their top 10 coaches. Now, it was very subjective. They didn't have a point system. They didn't have any walls that they put up around the ranking system. It was just how they felt, the vibes, which is, for sure, one way you can rank coaches. We do it all the time. We decided last episode we were going to put a little bit of a system around it. We called that the X-Dabo scale. We talked through in alarming detail all of the numbers that went into those rankings. And to Dan's point, yes, we're not great at math on the fly. I'm terrible at carrying the one. I've never been.
It was literally just adding 4 numbers together, and I was like,
never been good at it.
31, but it might be 29. Yeah,
never been good at that. So we want to make sure that this follow-up episode, because the coaches that we got through, let's say 15 or so of them, not necessarily a top anything, just the names that we got through.
Yeah.
So we've got names on this list that I think are interesting that people have sent in feedback to ask us about. Lincoln Riley, Dabo Sweeney, others that we'll get into. We've got 13 in front of us.
We did Dabo last week. Yeah.
We did Dabo last week. We've got 13 in front of us that I think we want to talk through and rank accordingly. Yes. And also call back to that scale. We're still using the scale. We're just not going to bombard you with as many numbers as before, because my eyes were glazing over as we talked about the numbers. We're going to talk a little bit less about the numbers and more specifically about the attributes within that system and that the coach has that maybe sets them apart from the rest. Does that make sense?
Definitely. Let's get through our bank of coaches.
So our bank of coaches is this for this episode. We've got Brent Venables, Mario Cristobal, Lincoln Riley, Josh Heupel, Jeff Braum, Matt Rhule, Jonathan Smith, Kirk Ferentz, Pat Narduzzi, Dave Doeren, Willie Fritz, and then Marcus Freeman and Deion Sanders.
Yes.
13 in total.
Now, did we leave off good coaches who could have easily made this bank? Definitely.
Well, we left off not only that, Dan, but
Yeah.
we left off all of the coaches that we talked about on our last episode.
Yeah, of course.
Ranging
Yes.
from Kirby Smart to Brian Kelly, Kalen DeBoer. I won't read them all off, all the way down to like Luke Fickell and Mike Gundy. So there's a range of guys that we included as part of that first episode that we're not talking about now.
Yes.
What I would argue, though, is that this episode is actually more interesting.
Okay.
Because many of the names that we're going to discuss are really close.
Mm-hmm.
Really close. All, to be sure, very good coaches.
Yeah.
But it's very close. And it's subjective as to why you'd put one over the other. So
I agree.
Let's lean on our scale a little bit. Let's lean on our banter and our personality and what we know about college football a lot more. And let's get the job done. Let's rank these 13.
Okay. Let's rank. Also receiving votes. Matt Campbell, good coach. Gus
Very good.
Malzahn, good coach. Mike Elko, good coach. Sonny Dykes, good coach. There's a lot of good coaches not on this list. Dave Clawson, good coach. We just picked these 12 because it's like a good geographic and ideological and age, whatever, smattering of good coaches. Do you want to start with your number 13 and work our way up?
The last on my list?
Yeah, we want drama here, Ty. We want to build. Okay.
Last on my list is Deion.
Okay, same.
Last on my list is Deion, and I've labeled him broadly under the category that I would just say is a great unknown. I think Deion for sure. If we're talking about the ex-Dabo scale, again, the four attributes of that were dependability, adaptability, build quality, and opportunity, with a kind of like a side portion of PR and media chops.
Mm-hmm.
Deion's strength right now is the PR and media chops. He's better at that than almost anybody. He's good at kicking up dust. He's good at driving interest in a program that's been down for a while. And, I think he's also been able to attract some talent. It's just a matter of putting this together in a way that the team feels well-rounded. Because last year they had, at times, a good offense, all the time a terrible offensive line, as well as a really bad defense. So there are definitely some rough edges that need to be sorted out, and that speaks to the quote-unquote build quality. But I just feel like we almost give him an incomplete. If we're going to put him on this list, fine, but he's got to be lower on that list because we don't know how dependable he is. We haven't seen a whole lot of adaptability, particularly in the recruiting game.
Right.
And we also don't know what the opportunity looks like over the next couple of years going into a new conference. I think we had a sense for what that looked like in the Pac-12, but now going into the Big 12, we're still sitting here trying to figure out which teams are going to contend this year. It feels like it's wide open.
Yeah.
Could Colorado be in that conversation? Maybe, but they have a lot of work to do before they can get there.
I'm gonna cut even simpler. Here's my WWE promo here. Find me something. No, I'm not gonna go full promo cut. Here's what we know definitively about Deion Sanders as an FBS level head coach. He can build an average roster that didn't make a bowl game, and he can be crazy charismatic and energetic in public, on camera, on the phone, on radio shows or podcasts, in reality shows, whatever. But as an actual program head, what do we know about him? What do we actually know about Deion Sanders?
Almost nothing.
It's almost, I would argue, unfair to put him on this list unless you are such a believer that this charisma and energy and a level of fame that the sport hasn't seen will build rosters and win games in a way that we haven't seen. But that's it.
Yeah.
So I have a 13.
There's a lot of fake it till you make it
I don't even know if it's that.
with Deion.
I think he's self-assured. I think he's positive what he's doing will get him a successful program.
Oh, I believe that he believes it.
Yeah.
But I think from the outside looking in, there's a lot of work that needs to be done here. You can't just build it all through the portal. At some point, you got to recruit high school kids. At some point, you got to figure out how to play defense and block. These are the basics that I think need to be job one in 2024.
Like, if year one is supposed to be the year where you're just like, okay, we're discovering things, we're figuring it all out, but like everything is sort of in a good place. Behind the scenes, it didn't seem like in a good place with, Sean Lewis being sort of pushed out and demoted, 3/4 of the way into the season and leaves at his first opportunity, new coordinators on both sides of the ball. Like, I don't know. It just, over the next 3 years, I kind of am going to watch for entertainment purposes, but not necessarily belief purposes.
Do you think, and then we'll move on, we'll keep working our way up the list here.
Yeah.
If TCU beats Colorado early part of last season, how does that change this conversation?
Probably not terribly so. I mean, it got a lot of attention and it raised up Colorado ratings last year, and the Q factor for Colorado was up, adding in the Nebraska win and the fact that a ton of people watched the Colorado State game late into the night.
Sure.
But I don't know. That's sort of like if you had wheels, you'd be a bicycle. We're living in a reality-based conversation. They beat TCU.
Who's next on your list? So we both agree on the Deion thing.
Okay. Number 12, I have Dave Doeren. And I don't love it because I like Dave Doeren. But something feels a little bit like I sense either an upside or that all of these guys have kind of broken through and made big bowl games and have sort of at least ascended to a moment in a given year. Whereas I don't love the ceiling of Dave Doeren. I love, in just comparing to these other guys, I love that NC State has been consistent. I love that he has won in a very specific way. Like, the vision has been largely defense, but there have been some offensive players who have popped off, good offensive linemen. But I see it as a ceiling play with Dave Doeren. Like, if you're going to hire Dave Doeren, your team is going to get better. If you're going to hire Dave Doeren, you're probably not going to go 10-2 ever.
So you're looking at the opportunity attribute of our Dabo scale.
In this specific case, yes, he's dependable. He adapts and uses the portal and has hired good assistant coaches by and large. Not everyone's a winner. He's going to win a bunch of games, but I want to dream big, Ty. Is that so wrong? I want to dream big. I want to win a conference, and especially in the ACC, which sometimes has heavyweights, sometimes doesn't have heavyweights. I want to dream bigger as Skip Thatcher with my pendulous balls on the desk.
I can't really refute any of that. And I struggle with Dave Doeren because Dave Doeren's a name that has come up for other coaching vacancies. Obviously, hasn't taken any of those. But by and large, the opinion of Dave Doeren in the coaching world seems to be pretty high. People like the guy and think he's a good football coach. There is that aspect, though, of the ACC tends to sometimes be a slop fest once you get past like the top 2 or 3 teams.
Yeah.
And NC State finds itself in that mud all too often.
Yeah.
I had hoped that with the likes of a Devin Leary or, I don't know, that maybe we would
Brennan Armstrong, the best of Brennan Armstrong. Yeah.
Maybe we would see some lift there on the NC State side. Maybe this is the year. It's an interesting roster going into 2024.
Sure.
Maybe this is it. Maybe on the heels of both the men's and women's teams making the Final Four in basketball, the football team can take a gigantic step forward. But I tend to agree with you that it, for whatever reason, feels like we've already maxed out. Like we know what we're gonna get. There's a dependability factor there that
he's 9-3 right? Yeah.
There's a dependability factor there
Totally.
that I think you can lean on and you know what you're gonna get. But in terms of ranking him higher, that's where it gets tricky.
I think we've come over the years. How long have we been doing this show now? 2-3 years?
Yep.
We are a pro swing show. We are swingers, Ty. That you've always said about yourself.
Sure.
We want places to take swings. We love that Colorado hired Deion Sanders. It's a big swing at a place that had been trying to win bunting. I'm just looking at this list, and I'm not going to say Kirk Ferentz is a big swing, gone undefeated in the Big Ten. He threw together a season. Undefeated. Great schedule. We had a whole meme out of it. But I don't know if Skip Thatcher has taken a big swing hiring Dave Doeren.
See, I had...
Where did you have Doeren?
I had Doeren 2-3 spots higher.
Okay.
I had Marcus Freeman next after Deion.
Oh, I have Marcus Freeman much higher.
I had Freeman pretty low relative to the scale.
Yeah.
And I don't know much about Marcus Freeman's dependability. I think we are learning about his adaptability on the fly. I think he's learning about his adaptability on the fly.
Right.
I think the build quality of Notre Dame's roster is definitely better than it was under his predecessor. And I think he's learning about hiring coaches that aren't his best friend, i.e. Mike Denbrock. He still knows Mike Denbrock fairly well. They work together, but supposedly not as close of friends as he and Jared Parker. The Jared Parker thing didn't work. He's at Troy now. You can go read about that long story.
Okay.
And the opportunity is there for Notre Dame, especially this year. Look at the schedule. The schedule is very advantageous. But it feels to me like with Marcus Freeman, there's a lot of great unknowns here.
Totally.
And because of that, I'm afraid to rank him higher.
Okay.
You know, like you and I have talked about this before many times in this show. Some of the in-game decisions that we've seen, I mean, some of the growing pains, frankly, that we have seen from Freeman hold me back a little bit from going higher with him.
Okay.
But the reason that they gave him the job in the first place is because he can recruit, because he was an up and coming defensive coordinator who everybody, again, to the point of the coaching world believing in Dave Doeren, the coaching world believed that Marcus Freeman was going to be a big deal. That's why Notre Dame stuck with him. He still could be that big deal. And I think by and large, he's been dependable enough to get him the good bowl games and to put a good team out in the field. But there is still a ways to go before they get to the next gear. So I had him next up. I had him 12th on this list.
Okay. Do you want me to tell you where I have Marcus Freeman, or I'll just tell you when we get there?
Tell us now.
All right. I have Marcus Freeman 4th.
Oh, wow. Okay. Tell us once we get there then.
Okay.
Once we get up a little bit higher,
Ooh,
you can
I like
explain
that
why
tease.
Yeah. That's what we call a tease.
Yeah. All right.
So, okay. I had Freeman after Deion.
Yep.
And then after him, I had Willie Fritz.
Okay. I have Fritz around there.
And I think Fritz falls into the category of Dave Doeren, of Pat Narduzzi, of Kirk Ferentz, guys who know how to do more with less, which is a huge skill if you're a coach. A huge skill if you're a coach. We're going to talk a little bit about Jonathan Smith later on. I think he's certainly going to be higher up on both of our lists. He's another guy who would fall into this category. But guys who consistently do this definitely do a good job in the build quality category. Adaptability, I think, goes hand in hand with doing more with less. And also these guys are fairly dependable. You know, Willie Fritz has been a really good coach.
Sure.
Taking over a new role now is going to be his first taste of Power 5. But beyond that, or Power 4, whatever it is. But beyond that, he's got all the other attributes here, from dependability all the way down to build quality, that I think make him a really, really attractive hire. I think it's going to be a nice hire. I really do. I don't know about the opportunity, and maybe that's what holds him back a little bit over the next 3 years. But I think everything else is there. And the same is true for Doeren, who I had a tick above Willie Fritz in my initial ranking of this. The guys who seemingly can churn out dependable seasons year in and year out, despite rosters that maybe don't knock you over, that is certainly the sign of a good coach.
So Willie Fritz, 40-15 at Sam Houston State, 17-7 at Georgia Southern, 54-47 at Tulane, but that also includes going 23-4 these last 2 years, including a top 10 finish after a win over USC and I believe the Cotton Bowl. I am partial to grizzled dudes who've seen it all, who have won at every level. Kalen DeBoer, Brian Kelly. Like there is something about that gets me going, Ty. And Willie Fritz, I think, fits that mold. And the opportunity at Houston, incredible local talent, incredible ability to, when a player decides to enter the portal and is from Texas, is from East Texas, is from Houston, whatever, has the opportunity to come home and play. I think that is something big. You're near quarterbacks. The Big 12 becomes easier without Texas and Oklahoma. It seems to be wide open. You can like UCF, you can like Utah, you can like TCU, Texas Tech, whoever you like. Oklahoma State has been great more often than not. But I think you combine the opportunity at Houston with Willie Fritz's recent track record. Took a while to get going at Tulane.
It did.
But
it did.
This is his swan song. He's 64. So I think there's a little bit of pop left in him. And so I have him at 9. So I have him a little bit higher, but I'm still pretty high on Willie Fritz in sort of the broad world of coaches nationally.
So if you've got him higher,
yeah,
and if you've got Marcus Freeman higher,
who's my 11?
Read from the bottom up on your list because I'm losing track here.
Yeah. So 13 Deion, 12 Dave Doeren, 11 Kirk Ferentz.
Ooh.
The next 3 years, okay? So what he's done in terms of consistency, specific vision, winning with defense, at best, winning with like punishing ground game and having a terrific eye, or hiring coaches with terrific eyes for tight ends, right? We had the 2 first-round tight ends 3 years ago, I want to say. Noah Fant? Noah Fant. I'm thinking of Vance Refrigeration from The Office. Noah Fant and TJ Hawkinson. And then Sam Laporte. The list goes on and on. George Kittle. So there is something about Kirk Ferentz and dependability, which I love. There's something about adaptability with Kirk Ferentz that I hate in terms of seeing where the game is going offensively. I hate it because if there's anybody I cannot count on to sort of read the tea leaves, it's Kirk Ferentz in terms of adaptability. Yeah.
Yeah. If you're grading adaptability 1 to 10, he's like a 3.
Yeah.
He's not high at all. And by the way, the adaptability category extends not just to team philosophy, how you put a team together and build the program, but also what you're doing on the field. Yeah. And if you listen to our college football grievances bracket, you know where we stand on punting 4th and short from plus territory.
Right.
So Kirk Ferentz gets docked for that as well because we know that's entirely his jam.
Yeah, and in terms of building, you have to give it up for somebody who is not bringing in blue chip after blue chip, but finds coaches, finds a system to develop them, especially on defense. I mean, Phil Parker has paid for himself, obviously. But opportunity-wise, they win. And yes, you can argue that in the Big Ten West, the teams placed in front of them are not necessarily the ones that are built to get over a team built like Iowa. That's fine, right? Wisconsin has had drama. Minnesota has been up and down. Like all of these teams, Illinois has been up and down. And Iowa's been steady in the way that they've won. But still, I'm going to have to put him ahead of some of these guys. And I can even make an argument for putting him higher because he's sort of like an aging boa constrictor. Like, he wins in a very specific way. He will strangle you. He's not moving quickly. His venom isn't the strongest. Elderly boa constrictor or aging boa constrictor. I wouldn't call him elderly. And that counts for something. He's dependable.
He is dependable. I think you've got him a little bit low. If we're talking about the next 3 years though, I think we're in the midst of a downturn. Even though they won whatever is left of the Big Ten West, because that's not how we're, shaping the conference anymore. I'm anticipating having the school get rid of his son. Like, I know everybody it's easy to dunk on Ferentz and be like, Iowa's a joke, whatever. But like at a certain point, he's going to lose his fastball or his knuckle or whatever he's throwing. And Yeah.
I'm banking on that a little bit.
Well, I mean, as I looked at this list as a whole,
Yeah.
we had 13 names on the list. There was a grouping of about 5 guys at the top for me. And then everybody else I was able to break into different categories, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have guys like Jonathan Smith and Matt Rhule, who I classify broadly as builders.
Yeah.
These are program builders. This category here, where Ferentz belongs, along with Pat Narduzzi and Dave Doeren and Willie Fritz, what I said earlier, more with less.
Mm-hmm.
And I think of the more with less guys, Kirk Ferentz has done that more than anybody else. He has done that more than anybody else. Now, it could be...
it's still NFL talent that he's won with on both sides of the ball.
It could be he's having to win with more with less because he doesn't know how to adapt.
Sure.
Right? This could be a bit of a self-inflicted wound because he has not adapted offense at all. Maybe by some miracle it'll work this year. I don't know. But part of that is his own doing. So he should be docked for that, but also we should credit him for the fact that in spite of it all, he is pretty damn dependable. You know what you're going to get from Iowa year in and year out. The build quality on the defensive side of the ball is actually pretty good. The opportunity over the next 3 years in the Big Ten, I think I agree with you. It's only going to get harder for Iowa. So, yeah, maybe he's losing a little bit off the fastball, or he's having to throw more junk. Whatever metaphor works for you is fine.
Yeah.
I think generally I'm a little bit higher on Ferentz. I think just because his track record of doing this every year, despite all of the outcry, the fact that he just wins games and isn't sexy, but somehow, some way can strangle the life out of you, that is both frustrating and sort of a marvel of modern college football.
I agree.
So I've got Ferentz at 8 on my list. He's a little bit higher up.
Do you think you as Skip Thatcher could sell Kirk Ferentz to your fan base and your donors?
Hell no.
See?
Hell no. But this isn't a hiring conversation.
Well, I mean, for the next 3 years, would you rather hire Kirk? You would rather hire Kirk Ferentz than Marcus Freeman for the next 3 years to run your program, is what you're telling me. See, now he's wiggling near his pendulous balls on the desk. He's wiggling.
This isn't fair. Fair.
Yep.
All right. So you've got Deion, then you've got Dave Doeren,
then Kirk Ferentz.
Then you've got Kirk Ferentz. Who is your next guy after
So
Ferentz?
Between Kirk Ferentz and Willie Fritz, who I have at 9, I have Jeff Braum.
Wow, you're low on Braum.
I'm low on Braum.
Why are you so low on Braum?
I want to dream big.
And you don't think that Jeff Braum is a ninth? You've got him ninth?
I have him 10th. I have Fritz
10th?
Yeah.
Explain.
Dan,
that's really low.
I want more NFL talent. I want more quarterbacks. I know Aiden O'Connell. Aiden O'Connell's an NFL quarterback now, right?
For the Raiders, yeah.
He has recruited. I think he recruited pretty impressively at Purdue, honestly. Especially look at some of the receivers he brought in, the eye for assistant coach talent. I think Jeff Brom's a very impressive coach. What was it? David Bell and Rondale Moore were the couple of the headliners. Running game never really got going. Had some good defensive linemen. Hired your guy Nick Holt as defensive coordinator a spell there.
Always,
your guy.
Sure.
But I don't know. Push comes to shove. I think he's beaten a couple of truly flawed ranked teams and got some credit for that. What did they beat? Michigan State, Mel Tucker era, Michigan State, Kenneth Walker. I think a lot of credit is sort of heaped on him, and I don't think I'm getting pop with Jeff Braum. I think I'm getting quality.
Whoa. Hold on.
No, I know. They were in the ACC championship game last year.
Did you watch last year?
Yeah, how'd they do against Florida State's backup quarterback? Not great.
Okay.
How'd they do against Kentucky? Not a great Kentucky team. Not great. I think they were medium-sized in a sea of not so tall. And that's okay. I think Jeff Brom's a good coach. I think he's recruited well once again. I think he has an eye for assistant talent. Obviously very aggressive in the portal at Louisville. The NIL program at Louisville seems robust. But man, I don't think I'm flirting with double digits as Skip Thatcher with Jeff Braum. I don't think that the duo of Thatcher Braum is doing a lot of work.
Braum is 5th on my list. I'm considerably higher on
Jeff Braum over Marcus Freeman for the next 3 years.
This isn't fair. I like Marcus Freeman. I do. But if I am forced to grade against other coaches, and if we're using our goofy imaginary scale as something of a guide,
I agree.
I guess the answer is yes.
What's the big zazz? What's the electricity with Jeff Braum that has you what'd you say, 5th?
5th, yeah.
Yeah. He went 26-25 in the Big Ten.
I think Jeff Braum, with the resources of Louisville, is a much, much better coach than he was at Purdue. And I think we're already starting to see this. And I hold up Mike Norvell as kind of the example for this, always the first name that comes to mind in this day and age, because it's equal parts high school recruiting as well as portal. And Jeff Braum, I think, has done a pretty good job of towing that line, walking that balance between not being too heavy in one versus the other, but knowing how to go out there and raise the floor of the program via the portal. And he did that last year by going out and getting Jack Plummer. He got more out of Jack Plummer than you or I ever thought.
Yeah.
And this year, provided Tyler Shuck can stay healthy, maybe he has an opportunity, as Andy Staples told us back in February, to be this year's Michael Penix. Who knows? But Jeff Braum seems to be the kind of guy who knows how to develop talent. And I think that's a really big deal. I also think in the ACC, I mean, look, times are changing very quickly. And we know that Florida State and perhaps Clemson, I don't know if there are others, want out of the ACC. But this is not a conference that we look at and say, this is filled to the brim with murderers and murderers and murderers. Okay?
Sure.
These are teams that are, in many cases, what the kids would say mid. Okay? You can get by.
Well, I'm writing this down. Yep.
You can get by. You can get by if you are Jeff Braum with quality talent and you know how to organize a roster in a way that, you know, you get a dependable result week in and week out.
You can get by, but you can't get by.
That can take you places in the ACC.
Yeah, it can't take you to a place that beats you the 2023 Pitt Panthers, though, right?
Maybe not.
It can't beat you, Christian Veo, and the 2023 Pitt Panthers. That is being a prisoner of the moment, and that is not fair for a coach in his first year.
I'm just higher on Braum than you are.
I understand. I think Braum is a good coach. I think Purdue is a tough job. I think Louisville is an easier job. I'm excited to see if he can take Louisville up a level or back to like the Charlie Strong-ish time. But at the same time, I think he gets a lot of benefit of the doubt for Purdue in the Big Ten West. Made one conference championship game. I think he won one West, right? In his final season at Purdue.
Yeah.
Took off after. And I understand why he took off.
This is going to be a fun conversation when you go all in on Jonathan Smith, which I can see coming a mile away.
Yeah, sure.
You probably already have the Jonathan Smith tattoo on your back. We'll get to that when we get to that.
Who is your number 9, unless you've already...
My number 9 is Pat Narduzzi.
My number 8 is Pat Narduzzi.
Yeah.
Legendary coach who took down Jeff Braum and the Louisville Cardinals this past fall.
I've got Narduzzi at 9, and then I've got Ferentz at 8.
Okay.
And again, Narduzzi is more with less.
I would love to hire Pat Narduzzi. I would love to eat club sandwiches with Pat Narduzzi. I would love to hear him out on all of his college football theories, and I am overrating him potentially because I just kind of like him.
I like him now that he's being completely honest all the time.
Unfiltered.
You know, Pat Narduzzi giving 0 Fs is pretty awesome, especially now as college football has seemingly gone corporate in many respects. Pat Narduzzi does not care about any of that. He does not care about your opinions. He does not care about anybody else's opinion. He is his own man, and he is willing to tell you. And so if nothing more, there is an entertainment quality. You know, if we talk about the X and the X Dabo, which is PR and media chops, Pat Narduzzi maybe gets a 4, but for different reasons than all the other 4s. He's just brutally honest, and that's fun.
Agree.
All right. I've got Deion, Freeman, Fritz, Doeren, Narduzzi, Ferentz. That is 13 through 8 in, I guess, ascending order.
Yeah, I have Narduzzi there because there's typically something excellent, even if it's just a side of the line, even if it's just a unit, even if it's just a like running back tandem or a receiver tandem, or a weird quarterback or a really weirdly successful secondary or weirdly shapen but effective defensive tackle. I'm just in on the ceiling. I think he won 20 games in 21 and 22. That Narduzzi feels like at least you're swinging for something. At least there's an identity there that can find you success on both sides of the ball, even if some of those transfers and offensive coordinators haven't worked out.
Now, let me throw this in here.
Yeah.
And then we can move on. But if opportunity is one of the things that we are looking at as we grade these guys, Pitt's opportunity over the next 3 years is something actually that Narduzzi has spoken about indirectly. And he's spoken about it with respect to the portal. There is an opportunity, I think, cap on Pitt because of what's gone down, where they lose some of their best players of the programs. I think it makes it really hard to adapt. I think he struggled now for a couple seasons running trying to put an offense together in the wake of Kenny Pickett. It hasn't been the same. So I like Pat Narduzzi. I think Pat Narduzzi's got a long track record for being a dependable and a good coach. However, I do think there is a moment of stumble right now for Pat Narduzzi in that Pitt program where I'm curious to see what this season looks like.
Yeah, I was going to say, wait till you feast your eyes on one Nate Yarnell, Ty.
I know. Yarny. Okay.
Well, okay, here's the counter to that. If here at Deep Pockets of Rubenstein U, Skip Thatcher has done a great job rounding up all of the money behind the scenes. I think you would like Pat Narduzzi more if he was the stealer rather than the stealee in the portal era.
Oh, hell yeah.
So I think Pitt is in a place financially where they're not necessarily competing in that arena.
Yeah.
And so if he were at a place and was able to make peace with where the sport is and will continue to be for at least the near term, I think he would be successful.
All right. Who you got next?
Mario Cristobal at number 7.
That's low.
Yes and no.
So you've got him below Matt Rhule, Jonathan Smith, Josh Heupel, Brent Venables, Lincoln Riley. You've got him down pretty far.
I do have him down pretty far.
Beneath Marcus Freeman. Freeman's higher on your list, right?
Freeman's higher on my list than Mario Cristobal.
Why would you want to hire Freeman over Cristobal? Cristobal's got a longer track record.
Sure.
You know a little bit more about him. Or is that the reason why you don't want to put him on?
Skip and Mario go back.
Okay.
They go way back. And there's some
baggage. There's baggage.
There's some baggage. Mario Cristobal is there because the only thing worse than losing in stupid ways is losing in stupid ways with clearly superior talent. And the fact that he recruits as well as he does almost becomes a frustration point. And if you can't get a lot out of quarterback and you don't succeed late in games, and even when you do win, there is a dental aspect, an oral surgery aspect to the experience. It's not something that I want to spend $8-9 million on. And talent acquisition is everything. Miami has been strong recruiting. Miami has been strong in the portal, or decently strong to strong. And there's a lot to like about the construction and the direction of Miami's program. Miami is uniquely suited because of Mario Cristobal's background with the school, the location in terms of proximity to recruits in that state, and the opportunity within the ACC, which I think there's a lot of, as you've mentioned a couple times now. But if you're telling me Mario Cristobal is who he's shown himself to be these past few years, there will be stupid losses, there will be painful wins, there will be good recruiting, but an obvious ceiling. And I think that obvious ceiling is painful losses, painful wins, and I think that gets you to not a huge swing. I think it gets you to like 9 wins.
Well, what you're describing is less with more.
A little bit, yeah.
The opposite of some of the guys that we mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
I've got him third on my list. I've got him third because I think the opportunity is great. If Miami can get itself organized, the opportunity is great.
Do you think Mario Cristobal would do better at Mizzou than Eli Drinkwitz? Do you think he would do better at Louisville than Jeff Braum? I don't know. I'm open to it, but I question it.
I think he would do better as a recruiter.
I'm not asking for that.
Than both of those guys.
I don't know. Mizzou is, by the way, there's some fire happening in a good way. The kids call it fire.
Yeah, Eli has put it togetger.
Last season, the NIL is just ridiculous. They're doing a great job.
Last season was a turning point.
Mm-hmm.
Look, talent acquisition has always been Cristobal's thing, and he, I think, has proven dependable when it comes to playing a very specific kind of football. Baked into that equation are some of the dumb decisions, right? The non-kneel, that type of stuff. But it's gorilla ball, right? He wants to beat you up.
Sure.
And you kind of know that you're going to get that from. So I think there's a dependability with Cristobal that you know you're going to get. I don't know if he's all that adaptable, but I think the build quality is high, and I think the opportunity is high for Cristobal. And so
Okay.
despite all the jokes that I know we'll make about him, either to be mean or not to be mean, just because we have to be honest, either way, I still think he deserves a little bit more respect. Like, would you take Matt Rhule over Cristobal?
Yes.
Wow. Look at you.
Yeah. I think Matt Rhule, the places he's been, the improvement, the turnarounds, I think Mario Cristobal wasn't handed a great roster at either Miami or Oregon, but recruited really well, got Oregon to a winning place, but not necessarily a sustainably winning place because of quarterback play, quarterback recruiting. I think he will get Miami to a winning place, but I don't think it's going to be a sustainable winning place because of quarterback and quarterback recruiting, quarterback development play, and quarterback recruiting. I think he is who he is. Like, who do you have just ahead of or just behind Mario Cristobal? Kirk Ferentz?
Behind Cristobal?
Yeah.
Well, no, I have, so my 13 again through 8 is Deion, Freeman, Fritz, Doeren, Narduzzi, and Ferentz.
Yeah.
My third place guy is Mario. And
third. Okay.
Behind him, I have Josh Heupel and Jeff Braum.
See, I have Heupel one ahead of Mario Cristobal.
Okay. So, okay. You've got Cristobal down at 7.
Yes.
And then you've got Heupel at 6.
Mm-hmm.
Feel like that's still a little bit low for Heupel, but we're getting close to the top, so there is a lot of running together here. Why Heupel over Cristobal?
Quarterback. I think Heupel's going to be able to continue to recruit. Tennessee's a weird, but it's weird geographically. There's some talent in state. There's obviously a good amount of talent all around. A lot of money pouring into that program, as we know. I think he's going, like, you go into California and you get a top tier 5-star caliber quarterback. You turn Hendon Hooker into a Heisman caliber signal caller. That just does it for me. That gets me going. You run an exciting brand of football. You recruit. You develop quarterbacks. I think the ceiling when you're able to do that is more intriguing than finding right tackles and edge rushers, which Mario Cristobal has done. I'm not fully sold on that strategy.
I'm higher on Heupel right now because I think there have been some real upgrades. Some by his own doing and some by just the kind of atmospherics around him. I think Nico in time is going to end up being an upgrade over Joe Milton.
Well,
I feel fairly confident in that.
Yeah.
And who knows, maybe even over Hendon Hooker by the time all is said and done. He's an exciting prospect.
Yep.
So for that reason alone, build quality is something that we look at. We know he knows how to put an offense together. But if you're adding in talent like Nico, I think that's a pretty big deal and something that we need to consider. Also, the opportunity. You know, I'm not going to sit here and say the SEC is easier now because
they're going to get 9 playoff bids.
Well,
14.
But I think that's where I'm going with this, right?
Yeah.
The SEC, there is a bit of a power vacuum now in the SEC with Saban leaving. I mean, Kalen DeBoer is a good coach. I'm sure Alabama's going to be fine. I don't expect that program to bottom out. I think in general, though, as we look at the SEC, we assume Georgia's the top of the heap. But then after that, you can make a case for any great number of teams. It really feels like it's wide open beyond that. And I think Tennessee is also in that mix. Maybe not to win the conference,
right? But
certainly to get one of those playoff bids. You got to figure there is more opportunity now than ever before for a team like Tennessee. I've thrown Penn State in that conversation as well. These teams that are very good, but have not been able to get over that mountaintop or to that mountaintop. Sure. Tennessee is one of them. And so I think the opportunity for Heupel spikes a little bit moving forward, right? That aspect of Tennessee has been missing just because it's been so hard to get in there over Georgia, over Alabama, over whoever else. So now the opportunity is better than ever before. And that's why I've got him at 4.
I have Tennessee as the top of the third tier in the SEC.
Okay.
I don't know who exactly they bundle with, but Georgia's alone on the first tier. I would have LSU and Bama and probably now Texas, right? They're coming off of a playoff berth. Like, that counts for something. So I would have them on the second tier.
Definitely.
And Tennessee a tier below that. And so I think there's opportunity there. I think there's splashiness potential there. So I don't know. That gets me going. Skip Thatcher.
The way that I put my list together.
Yeah.
My 7 is Matt Rhule. My 6 is Jonathan Smith.
Mm-hmm.
My 5 is Jeff Braum. My 4 is Josh Heupel, and my 3 is Mario Cristobal. And I've got Jonathan Smith and Matt Rhule clumped together there, kind of middle of the pack. As I said earlier, they're the
So
builders.
why are you middling on them as it relates to the rest of this list?
Both are obviously very good coaches.
Mm-hmm.
Both have different track records. Matt Rhule's track record as a college coach is that he is a builder. He is a builder. The build quality on the Matt Rhule side of things is strong because he's proven he can develop. He can develop a program. He can develop players within that program.
Yeah.
That said, I don't know what the opportunity looks like over the next 3 years for Nebraska. I think they're going to be better this year. I hope they're going to be better this year. I don't know what they're going to look like 3 years from now, because I think the Big Ten as a whole got a lot harder by adding 4 teams from the West.
Mm-hmm.
So the opportunity thing, I think, docks him a little bit. The adaptability side of things for Matt Rhule, I think, will be interesting, because what's he going to have to do this year? He's going to have to start a freshman quarterback. That's the only way that they got him to flip from Georgia.
Yeah.
So how will he adjust on the fly to what some of those obvious shortcomings are going to end up being? That'll be an interesting watch.
Mm-hmm.
I've got Rhule 7th on this list with potential to go a little bit higher, mainly because we know he's a program builder and the opportunity's there, but it's not as high as it could be. And I think, frankly, Jonathan Smith falls into a very similar category. I think Jonathan Smith has a better track record for doing not just the program build thing, but more with less at Oregon State.
Sure.
He's proven very, very adept at doing all of that. I think the opportunity at Michigan State is probably greater in the short term than it is at Nebraska. And I think there's a dependability to Jonathan Smith that's really exciting. If you're a Michigan State fan, you're probably thrilled that you hired the guy. And he's a great hire. Love it. I wouldn't put him above Jeff Braum, Josh Heupel, Mario Cristobal, Brent, Venables, Lincoln Riley. But I think if we're having this conversation, ranking these guys accordingly, that's where I'd put them.
You say Mike Riley or Lincoln Riley? And it's, if you want to bring Mike Riley into this conversation, we absolutely can.
I meant Lincoln Riley. Maybe I said Mike.
I'm reasonably high on Matt Rhule, but to be high on Matt Rhule is to say I'm high on his personality. I'm high on his at least defensive coach track record. I'm high on his defensive player development, and you're high on his second offensive coordinator hire at Nebraska.
And I'd go a step further.
Yeah.
You're high on him staying in one place for more than 3 years.
Yes. You're high on continuity with Matt Rhule. I think they're going to make a change at offensive coordinator probably after this year, if not in the middle of the year. I don't know. I don't think Marcus Satterfield is going to be the long-term answer at offensive coordinator for Nebraska. That's my opinion. Happy to be wrong. I think there's an energy to Matt Rhule. I think there is support, NIL support at Nebraska that will be fun for the Huskers moving forward if there is some patience on offense. This is more about the next 3 years than it is about what we know about Matt Rhule. We know that the defensive chops can be there, that development is going to be there, that he's a football coach. He's like a diehard, dirty football coach.
Yeah.
I don't know what that means. But you're betting on it more than you are loving the recent track record. Because last year the Nebraska offense and They went after the wrong guy in the portal at quarterback. It was a mess. It was an absolute nightmare. I'm buying low. Just compared to some of the other guys on this list, I see more upside with Matt Rhule.
So hold on.
Yeah.
I know compared to your list, I don't know. You may have said it. I don't recall. How
I have Rhule after Heupel at 5.
How high up do you have Jonathan Smith?
I have Jonathan Smith on top of my list.
No, at the top?
Yeah.
Oh, you did get the back tattoo.
It's all relative. You
have a Jonathan Smith back tattoo.
I do. in like
one.
the Steve-O.
You've got him over Lincoln Riley and Brent Venables.
Yes. I like his hires. I like Aiden Childs. I kind of like the match between Jonathan Smith and Michigan State. Like, Michigan State is a place the right guy can win. The best of D'Antonio won. And won in a very specific way with defense and went toe-to-toe with a team that was clearly more talented, or toes-to-toes with Michigan and Ohio State. Has made the playoff, nearly scored a point in the playoff. Michigan State, place-wise, can be successful. There is something underdoggy about Jonathan Smith. There is something about Oregon State, not the premier program in the state. Michigan State, not the premier program in the state. An afterthought. Down bad right before he arrived. Aiden Childs, I think, is going to be very strong. I think the offensive line will be in very capable hands. I think you can portal a bunch to Michigan State in the way that Mel Tucker did, but I think Jonathan Smith has a better eye for assistance. I think he will have a better vision. And of these guys, I think I can get the most balanced success with Jonathan Smith. I'm not getting balanced success so far with Lincoln Riley, and I don't think there is hope for that. I'm not counting on Marcus Freeman to find his guy at quarterback and offensive coordinator in the same year. I'm just not yet.
At long last, we have peeled back enough layers of this Rubenstein onion.
Yeah.
And have revealed your true West Coast bias.
Well, can I tell you something?
At long last, we've done it.
At long last?
We have done it, Verballerhood. We have done it.
Okay.
We've gotten to the core.
You got to take swings, Ty. Okay? Is this not a swing?
This is a swing. We are swingers.
Okay. It's not at all interesting. It's not at all like to say like Lincoln Riley's going to get defense figured out. Okay. That's a major swing. But at least we've seen evidence that it could be tricky and difficult for Lincoln Riley to do that. And like, how do you take that seriously moving forward in the next 3 years, that Lincoln Riley is going to build a complete team? Brent Venables, I have pretty high on my list, but we've now seen a little bit of evidence. So this is a swing. I'm taking a big swing, Ty, and we can return to this in 3 years. I don't know if we'll be doing the show in 3 years. We might just have sold the show. We're renting chairs and we're living our best life.
You're renting. I'm not doing the rent.
You're not renting chairs with me?
No.
Will you be a pizza YouTuber with me?
I could do that.
Okay. Fair
I
enough.
could do that. Yeah, I could do that.
I just think there's opportunity with Jonathan Smith. I also like the point in his career that he's in. The thing I don't like about Jonathan Smith is I don't love Power 5, or in this case, Power 2 to Power 5 head coaching moves. I think that's trickier than people just assume. Like, I think Brian Kelly's more of an exception. Like, the move from Power 5 head coach to Power 5 head coach, I think, is very difficult. I think it's difficult to build something impressive, which he did at Oregon State, and then start from square one at another major place. I like the energy coming as a coordinator. I like the energy somewhat coming as a G5 head coach, that like, okay, I'm going to a new place. But that's not an element I love. Yeah. Other than that, though, I don't like less about the Jonathan Smith situation than I do other places.
I think you're wise to point out that power conference to power conference coaching moves more often than not don't work.
Right.
And there's a fair amount of data that backs that up, which is crazy because we obsess over these things.
Mm-hmm.
Obsess over them year in and year out, which coaches might be jumping from one big school to another. And the proof is sort of in the pudding.
Yeah.
I like Jonathan Smith. I just don't like him as much as you do.
Yeah.
I'll be real. I don't like him as much as you do.
If you got divorced tomorrow, if you got divorced tonight, and were forced to remarry tomorrow, your head would be spinning. Wait, she doesn't like spaghetti? Oh, okay. Like, I just think there is something about the head coach to head coach move on the Power 5 level that, like, I'm just not crazy about. But I still like the swing here. I still like the swing. I still think you're getting a lot of Chris Peterson DNA here. I don't know.
All right. Okay.
We can return to this in, 2027, when you're in your early to mid-50s, and you can call me wrong. You can call me out.
So I've got Rhule at 7, Smith at 6.
Okay.
My top 5 is Jeff Braum. We talked about Jeff Braum. Josh Heupel, Talked about Heupel. 3 is Mario Cristobal. I talked about Cristobal already.
Yeah.
My top 2, Lincoln Riley is number 1. Brent Venables is number 2.
You have 2 current major fan bases who don't like Lincoln Riley.
I have them side by side.
Yeah.
I do. Now, this is well outside our top 10. This is outside the top 10.
I understand.
Bear in mind, this is a part 2 from an episode we did last week. So you can go and count up however many coaches we discussed last week. Lincoln would be next up on my list. The reason that I've got him this high is because love him or hate him, he has been dependable. Love him or hate him, there's a ton of opportunity at USC. Would you agree on both of those points?
Yeah.
The rub with Lincoln is adaptability and build quality. 2 things that go hand in hand. Specifically for him with defense. The defense remains the fly in the ointment. And we've said this how many years running about Lincoln Riley and his defenses.
Yeah.
All they need to do is take a marginal step forward. I remember when they brought Alex Grinch
2020 was a fun time. Yeah.
Yeah. This was
the only element of 2020 that was a fun time, to be clear, was Oklahoma's defense.
Exactly. And it was just get marginally better. If you get marginally better, the team as a whole is going to sail much farther.
Yeah.
Just because they were really lacking on defense the year prior. This is not something he's consistently been able to solve. Now, maybe bringing in Dan Lynn, maybe there's been some sort of renewed focus on getting defensive talent in there. I mean, we could probably make that its own podcast altogether. But I think that aspect of Lincoln Riley is what holds me back from putting him higher up on this list. We know he can coach offense. We know guys are going to want to go play offense for Lincoln Riley. But the defensive side of the ball, ultimately, it's what he does on defense that will, I think, either enable him or prevent him from getting to whatever that next echelon is, right? Whether it's getting to the playoff, winning a playoff game, contending for a title. If you don't play defense, you're in for a world of hurt. Eventually, it will catch up with you, just as it did this past season.
In no way am I saying that Lincoln Riley will again build a program that will allow 50 points in the first half of a playoff game. But on this list, there is but one man who has built a program that allowed 50 points, maybe 49, in the first half of a playoff game. And that's
is he not the only name on this list who has been to a playoff game though?
The only guy on this list, well, some guy like Brent Venables has as a coordinator.
As a head coach, though. No.
As a head coach,
he's the only one on this list who has gone to a playoff game.
Believe so. And many more of these guys will heading into the 12-team era. But your point stands.
So I think that stands for something.
At his current place?
Lincoln. Not at his current place, no.
Not at his current place.
At his previous place.
Yeah.
I've got him by a nose ahead of Venables. I like Venables. I think Venables showed some adaptability last year. The defense, it was another situation for Oklahoma where we're talking about the defense again. Because it was kind of a disaster in year one. And, you know, like we saw it coming. We said, don't hire Ted Roof to run things.
Right.
It didn't work. They got better.
He wasn't
last
necessarily
year.
running things, but he was around.
He was around.
Yeah.
Okay. He was close enough to the
hanging out.
program.
Yeah.
You don't need him that close to your defense. The fact that they got better last year, the fact that it feels like Oklahoma is trending up, the fact that recruiting has not dropped off at all.
No.
For Brent Venables. All of that stuff is really, really positive. We know
Great.
It's a stable program. It is a good place to be hired and run your football program. You have a ton of resources. You have a good administration behind you. That seems to be a very, very healthy situation. And we know they like Brent Venables. He was there before. It was a no-brainer to go out and hire him in the first place. So I think provided he continues to be adaptable, provided he is able to put talent in the NFL, keep recruiting at a high level, all of that stuff I think serves him really, really well. The only knock that I have on him at this point, and this is the same knock that many other fans around the Big 12 have been sort of holding up in Oklahoma's face. Opportunity. Over the next 3 years, what does the opportunity look like for Oklahoma now going into into the SEC from the Big 12?
Yep.
Knowing that the schedule is going to be dramatically harder. What does that opportunity look like? Because they were a big fish in a smaller pond before, and now that situation is like completely reversed.
I'm with you. In 2024, they had the number 11 class in the country, recruiting class. They currently have a top 10 class. In 2023, number 6 class. Roster-wise, I don't think there is a dramatic drop-off between basically the non-Georgia element of the SEC and Oklahoma. So I'm not terribly concerned about the players on the field for Oklahoma. I question some assistant hires. I question some firepower on offense. Who develops? Hopefully it's 2 or 3 guys this year, because that seems to be a worthwhile knock. Like Dylan Gabriel was very good last year, but it was a lot of Drake Stoops. Yeah. Not a lot of electricity from a Jeff Lebby offense compared to what it probably should have been, especially late in games. So I wonder about that with Brent Venables. He's tying his career as a head coach to Jackson Arnold to me, which is hopefully good. Hopefully good for Brent Venables and Jackson Arnold, tying their careers to each other. But I have him high. I have Brent Venables high on this list for that talent acquisition, and I think the opportunity is actually there.
It's definitely there.
This isn't the 2014 SEC or whatever it was when the Mississippi school, there was a ton. I think there's opportunity for Oklahoma. I really do.
There's absolutely opportunity for all of these teams. I mean, I mentioned it earlier in the SEC when I talked about Josh Heupel. I think the difference between Tennessee and Oklahoma is that Oklahoma just got there.
Sure.
Is there going to be any kind of culture shock as they go in, as they play a harder schedule? I don't know. We won't know until we see that unfold this season. That's my one hiccup.
Will we know by December?
We should.
Okay.
We should know.
Yeah. Look, Oklahoma just got there, but Kalen DeBoer just got there too, right? Mike Elko just got there too. A lot of new faces from outside the footprint. So I don't know. So you need my top 4 now, right?
I need your top 4. Yeah. You already said you got Jonathan Smith, number 1.
Yeah.
What's the rest of your top 4 look like?
I'm going number 4, Marcus Freeman. And this is another swing. You're buying low on Marcus Freeman. I'm buying low on Marcus Freeman. I'm going to tell you why.
This isn't buying that low. I mean, it's really buying.
I don't think he's super well regarded in terms of national coaches in this moment. I think youth, recruiting, and look, if I'm hiring to my generic pretty good school, I still think he's going to recruit. It's easier to recruit to Notre Dame than it is to a generic pretty good school because you're recruiting nationally. Obviously, he resonates with recruits. They have brought in quarterbacks in the portal. After not spending on an offensive coordinator, it appears they're very much willing to spend on an offensive coordinator.
Yeah, that has changed.
Yeah. So I am banking on that because in looking at this list, in looking at Pat Narduzzi, Willie Fritz, Kirk Ferentz, Dave Doeren, there's a lot of older guys here. And so I think there are instances where guys can work out the kinks. 2-3 years of taking some lumps on the job and figuring it out. If I'm actually comparing these guys over the next 3 years at the school they're at, Notre Dame has a remarkable opportunity to win a lot of games these next 2 or 3 years. Now, we'll see what happens at quarterback. It's CJ Carr is the quarterback of the future.
Yeah.
Got Riley Leonard this year, pending whatever his health issues are. We'll see what they can do in terms of building out receiver, which has long been a question, building out quality receiver depth. But in looking forward, I think there's really interesting upside because of the place, because of recruiting. Look at their schedule this year.
I know. The schedule this year, we've said it before, they need to get in the playoff this year.
Yeah.
They should be a playoff team this year. They really should. Unless something truly bottoms out.
They're not going to have to play a conference championship game for at least the next few years, as far as we know. Another advantage to getting to a playoff.
They should be in the playoff this year.
Yeah.
They really should. Who do you have at 3?
Lincoln Riley at 3. I have him
Venables
below
at
Brent
2?
Venables and Jonathan Smith because of defense. Because if you offer me something consistently catastrophic, I can't put you atop this like next 3-year list. If there's no end in sight to the open door policy of the USC front seven, I can't get that high on you and put you number 1. I still think he's very good. I still think there's every reason in the world for quality quarterbacks to say, teach me, Coach Riley, teach me.
Yeah.
I'd love to see more receivers coming to USC. I'd love to see a better offensive line. And that was kind of the secret sauce at Oklahoma, was how balanced they were. When they had Samaje Perine, when they had, Rodney Anderson, like they had good to really, really good running backs. Joe Mixon. Now, I don't know if I'm spanning both the Stoops, Riley, and Riley era, but the balance, the offensive line development was great. USC doesn't have that right now. So just in terms of a base at USC for the next 3 years, I'm not there. Talent acquisition's too important to me, and I don't think he's met the mark.
And Venables has the nod over Lincoln.
Yeah.
Because of defense?
Because of both defense and like what is the promise of USC moving forward at quarterback? I think they have a top quarterback in the 2025 class, but like it's either going to be Jade Mayava or Miller Moss this year. I think there's more to be excited about with Jackson Arnold. I think there's more to be excited about building a complete wrecking ball at Oklahoma than there is to build a complete wrecking ball at USC. I think there's more juice with Oklahoma than there is with USC right now. And I think Lincoln Riley and Brent Venables are responsible for the juice or lack thereof.
One thing we didn't mention, and
I want to be seduced. Skip wants to be seduced.
One thing we didn't mention,
yeah,
that maybe I should have, since I was considerably higher on Lincoln than you were.
Mm-hmm.
If there is a culture shock element to Brent Venables, Oklahoma joining the SEC, is there any culture shock of Lincoln Riley joining the Big Ten? With the travel, right? I mean, it's an entirely new slate of teams.
Sure.
I'm not one who believes too intently that the Big Ten plays some style of football and either USC is going to need to adjust to it or it's going to need to adjust to USC. I think everybody is playing all sorts of different styles, and I don't think it's so woven into the culture of the conference that anyone's going to have to change too dramatically. I don't really believe that, but it is an X factor, playing a different schedule, more travel, that type of thing.
Sure.
Don't know if we could ever quantify it, but something to keep in mind if we're looking at opportunity over the next 3 years.
Yeah, look, if Pac-12 teams, be it Oregon, Utah, UCLA, were able to stomp USC consistently, I think the recent Pac-12 offenses have been more impressive than what the Big Ten has offered up. Like, of the pre-existing Big Ten teams, like, how many great offenses have we seen recently? We've seen Ohio State. We've seen Michigan. We haven't seen Penn State in a minute. Penn State's been a minute. There's not a lot of promise moving forward for an explosive Penn State offense right now. So, Katron Allen and Nick Singleton, can they run all over USC?
Did you see any of the Drew Aller highlights from the spring game?
I assume he's gotten better, but I don't know. No, I didn't see him.
Highlight reel wasn't great.
That's okay. You got Abdul Carter bearing down.
Can he play quarterback?
Yeah.
Wasn't great. We'll see, but you're right. You're right.
Well, no, what I'm saying is, like, if you have an okay offensive line and borderline bruising running backs, you will succeed against USC's defense. And that's what Penn State kind of has in Katron Allen and Nick Singleton. So I don't think it's going to be all that different. I think USC is going to win games. I think the defense will hold it back, at least in the short term. I don't think they have the superstars at receiver like they did even a couple years ago and like Oklahoma had with Lincoln Riley. But I still think they're likely in a better place because of what a Lincoln Riley offensive ceiling can show the world.
Verballerhood. Let us know where we're right, where we're wrong, who you agree more with, who you agree least with.
I think my theme was swings, though, right?
Your theme was swings, yeah.
Yeah.
Let us know in the comments. Let us know via email, solidverbal@gmail.com. Let us know on social media, all throughout social media, what we're right about, what we're wrong about. Again, my top 13 just of these coaches that we discussed today. Not overall. My top 13 was Lincoln Riley, Brent Venables, Mario Cristobal 1 through 3, Josh Heupel, Jeff Braum, Jonathan Smith, Matt Rhule. That's 4 through 7. And then to round things out, I had Kirk Ferentz, Pat Narduzzi, Dave Doeren, Willie Fritz, Marcus Freeman, and Deion Sanders. What was your top 13?
In ascending order, Deion, Doeren, Ferentz, Braum, Fritz. So this is 13 to 1. Pat Narduzzi 8, Mario Cristobal 7, Josh Heupel 6, Matt Rhule 5, Marcus Freeman 4, Lincoln Riley 3, Brent Venables 2, Jonathan Smith 1.
Man, a Jonathan Smith tattoo. You can't get that out easily.
I know, Ty.
It takes a laser beam. I'm told it hurts.
The good thing about picking Jonathan Smith number 1 is you can say I'm wrong, but you have no idea what he's going to do at Michigan State.
I have no idea. No, we don't. Nobody does. We have no idea.
So that's where I am. And so, yes, maybe I'm preposterously high on Jonathan Smith, but I've seen evidence elsewhere. I'm higher on Marcus Freeman than you are, too.
You're way higher on Freeman than I am.
I'm lower on Dave Doeren and Jeff Braum than you are.
Okay.
But otherwise, I think we're decently aligned.
Let us know. solveverbal@gmail.com again is the email. That's where you can write in, let us know your thoughts. Don't forget, wherever it is you are listening, watching this podcast episode, hit subscribe or follow. It helps us in more ways than we can put into words. If you really like what we do, verballers.com is our Patreon. That's where you can get this episode early, ad-free. You also get access to bonus perks.
Yeah.
Things of that nature. That's our Patreon. verballers.com. So.
Oh, and if you violently disagreed with both of us and our reasoning, you should also follow and subscribe because it's only up from here.
It's only up from here. So here is the deal. Perfect segue.
Yeah.
We're recording this later in the day on Monday, April the 15th. It's going to drop for the public. Well, it's going to drop for Patreon folks right away, but it's going to drop for the public bright and early Tuesday morning. As people are reading the description of this podcast on their podcasting app of choice, as you are listening to it, the transfer portal is going to open.
Yes.
And I'm a little fearful it's going to be like the scene in Ghostbusters where they just shut the grid off and all the ghosts are out again. All right. And it's just total chaos. I don't think it's going to be quite as frenetic as it was during the first transfer window, but those could be famous last words.
Is there like a Notre Dame player that Notre Dame people think are like, oh man, I really hope this guy doesn't leave? Like, are there surprises in store?
I think in general, and this isn't specific to Notre Dame, I'm not going to speak to Notre Dame about this, but you and I read a considerable amount of reputable reporters, message board rumors, things of that nature, dark web, whatever. We read a fair amount about that stuff. Most of the indications are that it's going to be a quite active portal window again.
Yeah.
And I'm sure we won't have quite the same number as we did the last time the portal opened.
Right.
But I think there stands a pretty good chance that we're going to see some impact names that are moving, or at least throwing their hat in the ring.
I mean, there's some big quarterback stuff, like what happens with the Alabama battle? What happens with the Ohio State battle? Like, guys are going to dip.
It will be very interesting to see what happens from this point forward. But the portal opens on Tuesday. Depending on what goes down in the portal, that may be the topic for our next episode. We also have the NFL draft coming up. We've got a little spin on that we're going to put out there. We've also got spring football, just in general, football that has just started to ratchet up. There were a bunch of teams that played this past weekend, scrimmages, practices, their own formats, you name it. Everybody kind of has their own deal. But that started up this weekend. We promise we'll have a full recap or a running recap, depending on if there are any key injuries or who knows what happens with the portal. It's all sort of interconnected. So as you said, it is sort of up from here. We're going to see a nice little boost in the college football world as things go down in the portal, as we start talking about spring football. There's going to be our normal lull in May because there always is in May. But then as we build into June And July and certainly August, September, that's when the rubber starts meeting the road. So
yeah,
kind of only up from here right now. We're in the bottom of the offseason.
And you're doing like a solo election special too, come later in the year, right? No? Was I promised something not in the cards?
There is nothing I would like less than doing a solo election special.
All right, this is Ty, and I've got 37 solid thoughts about the coming election.
I am good. Okay. Somebody else can do that episode.
Yeah.
If we find one, we'll throw out the link on the show notes.
Sure.
With all that being said, we've got our lists. Let us know about yours, our baker's dozen of coach rankings based loosely on our ex-Dabo scale that we trotted out last week.
Kind of a random grouping, right? Doesn't mean Matt Campbell is worse than all those guys. Doesn't mean Gus Malzahn or Mike Elko. We just threw together a baker's dozen.
For that guy over there, my good friend, Dan Rubenstein, from myself, Ty Hildenbrand, thanks again for downloading, listening, supporting the Solid Verbal. We will talk to you all soon. In the meantime, stay solid.
Peace.